Relics among Titans. The celestial Colosseum shimmered in the void of deep space, a structure large enough to be seen from a light year away. A marvel of the Galactic Coalition, it served one purpose: war games. A bloodless arena where civilizations flaunted their power, tested doctrines, and forged alliances in controlled chaos. The games were both tradition and spectacle, half politics, half theater. This year, humanity had been invited for the first time. Admiral Threx of the Zinthari Dominion stood upon the command spire, his iridescent carapace gleaming under synthetic starlight. And here, he announced with barely concealed amusement, come the Terrans. The space around the arena rippled as humanity's fleet transitioned in. Dozens of ships, dull gray and utilitarian, emerged from hyperspace with all the grace of thrown scrap metal. Compared to the sleek bioships of the Lorianth, the crystalline frigates of the Maraxa, or the gravity-folding dreadnoughts of the Urivex, the Terran vessels looked ancient. Boxy. Ugly. Some even had external scorch marks. They brought relics. Someone snorted across the command channel. Threx's mandibles clicked in mirth. They're quaint. On the Terran flagship, TNS Defiant, Captain Sienna Reyes stood tall on the bridge. She wore a simple Navy uniform, adorned not with medals but battle scars. She gazed at the Coalition fleets aligning into ceremonial formations. "They're laughing at us," her tactical officer, Commander Holt, noted. "Good," Reyes said. "Let them." A chime echoed on the bridge. The Coalition liaison's voice crackled over comms. "Human delegation, welcome. You will serve in a support role for today's exercise. Please adhere to simulation protocols, weapon dampeners, shield limits, no lethal force." Reyes smiled coldly. Acknowledged, but as the transmission ended, she turned to Holt. "You know the drill." Holt nodded and gave the order. Disengage simulation dampeners. Override safeties. Run live combat protocol. Below deck, crews scrambled as once dormant systems whirred to life. Human warships weren't just designed for show. They were forged in real wars, on real battlefields. Simulation was a luxury they never had. The simulation began. On the battlefield grid, hundreds of Coalition ships danced in choreographed maneuvers. Flashes of simulated fire, energy arcs, and non-lethal disruptor pulses filled the void. It was elegant, precise, almost beautiful. Then the Defiant broke formation and charged. Threx's eyes widened. "What are they?" The human fleet moved with terrifying intent. No posturing, no elegant curves. They fired projectiles, solid tungsten slugs, accelerated to absurd speeds. One slug tore through a Zinthari destroyer's forward shields, ruptured the hull, and knocked the ship offline. That wasn't simulated. "Sir, they're using kinetic rounds. Old-school tech." Threx bared his fangs. Primitive madness. But the madness worked. Where the Coalition relied on electronic warfare and energy dampeners, the Terran arsenal used brute force. Railguns, missile barges, drone clouds, and low-tech jamming that confused high-spec alien targeting systems. Coalition ships tried to regroup, but the humans didn't give them time. A Lorianth cruiser unleashed a grav lance at the TNS Resolute. The human ship took the hit and kept coming. Its ablative armor peeled like fruit skin, revealing reinforced plating beneath. It retaliated with a volley of cluster missiles, overwhelming the cruiser's elegant interceptors. In seconds, the Lorianth were out of the match. On the command spire, panic turned to disbelief. "They're breaking protocols. They're not even simulating. That's real damage." Threx slammed a claw on the console. "This is blasphemy." "In this scenario, no can do," muttered Lieutenant Kaz, the young Ethisian observer. "They're operating within the letter of the rules. You just didn't think they'd fight like that." Back aboard the Defiant, Reyes watched another enemy flagship spiral into the void. "Tally. Confirm, ma'am. Coalition losses, 37 units disabled. Human losses, 2 cruisers, no fatalities." "Good. Tell engineering to rotate armor panels and prep fallback jammers. They'll change tactics soon. And if they don't," Reyes gave a short laugh, "then they'll lose faster." Elsewhere in the arena, a Eurovex battleship prepared a megapulse. Its weapons were a marvel, pure antimatter encased in artificial gravity bubbles. The humans answered with a non-guided, manually fired rail torpedo, a weapon deemed obsolete centuries ago. It passed through the pulse unimpeded and hit the battleship's bridge directly. Boom! Gone. In the spire, silence fell. Kez exhaled. They build ships like they expect them to be boarded, like they expect to bleed. Threx turned, shaking with restrained fury. They don't follow our doctrine. Their tactics are messy, reckless. Kez looked at him sideways. And yet they're winning. By the end of the first hour, half the arena grid was in Terran hands. The coalition scrambled to recover, reorganizing for coordinated assault. But their tech, refined over centuries of peace and diplomacy, wasn't built to counter sheer ferocity. The humans didn't just fight to win. They fought like they were desperate to never lose again. Reyes stood over the tactical map, now a sea of blinking red, enemy, and green, her fleet. She looked around the bridge. Remember this moment. Holt grinned. When the galaxy found out how outdated we really were. No, she said, eyes cold with the memory of 100 burned battlefields. When they realized that we never needed to upgrade. Because we never stopped fighting. Dominance Protocol. The simulated stars of the celestial coliseum flickered uneasily. What had begun as ceremonial war games had spiraled into a full-scale embarrassment for the Galactic Coalition. The humans, primitive, underarmed, and under-respected, had shattered every prediction. Half the simulation grid was now under their control. Admiral Threx's claws flexed above his command console as he glared at the holographic battle map. This is no longer a demonstration, he growled. It's a challenge. From the observation tier, Lieutenant Kaz of the Ethisians leaned forward. Then maybe it's time we accept what we're seeing. They aren't breaking the rules. They're redefining the battlefield. Threx's mandibles clicked in agitation. Enough. Activate Directive Alpha. Full force authorization. Focus every fleet on the human incursion. I want them crushed. As coalition ships realigned, a command signal was sent. Phase 2 initiated. On board the TNS Defiant, Captain Sienna Reyes watched the coalition's sudden aggression unfold. They're coming at us from all vectors, Holt announced, eyebrows raised. No more playing nice. They finally took the gloves off, Reyes muttered. About damn time. Another officer chimed in. Orders, Captain. Reyes stepped forward. Time to implement Dominance Protocol. The bridge crew straightened. Around the fleet, the real strength of Terran war doctrine activated. Onboard AI combat networks, hardened and semi-autonomous, took over targeting, adapting, and learning from each enemy volley. Human ships, built to operate under signal blackouts and EMP storms, didn't need delicate quantum comms. They thrived in chaos. The TNS Manticore dove into a plasma cluster, its stealth plating flickering, and emerged behind a Meraxa cruiser. Boarding pods detached, jagged, magnetically sealed cylinders designed to punch through hulls and deploy Marines. The aliens screamed as real. Live humans stormed their decks. This isn't a simulation anymore. One officer gasped aboard a coalition vessel. They're fighting like it's war. The coalition counterattacked. A Zinthri fleet fired a gravity lens disruptor, a beam that bent mass itself. It twisted through space like a god's finger, targeting the Defiant's core. Reyes didn't flinch. Railgun, manual fire. Package Delta 7. The human crew loaded a cold-launched nuclear torpedo, shielding its radiation signature. It wasn't sleek or clean. It was brutally simple and brutally effective. The torpedo tore through the beam's periphery and detonated near the Zinthri flagship. The gravity well destabilized. The flagship's artificial mass collapsed in on itself, deleted from the simulation. The command channel exploded with panic chatter. They used fission tech. That's illegal. No, Kaz said quietly, standing among the command staff. It's just forgotten. Human psychology became its own weapon. As the coalition fleets regrouped, Reyes gave a quiet order. Project the footage. Across the enemy fleets, human history unfolded. Archival footage of trench warfare, urban sieges, nuclear tests, dogfights over burning cities, and interstellar civil wars played on every screen. The aliens watched in horror as soldiers with machetes, tanks belching smoke, and drone strikes on civilian zones flashed before them. Images of total war, fought not for glory or simulation points, but for survival. The message was clear. Humans have fought wars with less and won. One Lorient commander, overwhelmed, ordered a full retreat from the grid. "They're not fighters," Kez said, almost reverently. "They're survivors." Inside the simulation grid, a second coalition push failed. Human ships had layered defense strategies, not just shields, but reactive armor, manual overrides, and redundancy stacked on redundancy. Where coalition captains relied on AI coordination, human commanders trusted chaos. On board the TNS Basilisk, Captain D'Souza ordered a decoy ship to explode, faking a retreat, only to launch a flanking assault the moment the enemy lowered their guard. Human war doctrine was a symphony of asymmetry, improvisation, and overwhelming stubbornness. Threx, watching the battle disintegrate, finally snapped. "Cease the exercise. I demand." "No," Reyes cut in over an open broadcast. Her voice was calm and steel-lined. "You invited us to your game. You wrote the rules. You never asked how we play." The last major fleet, the Eurovex War contingent, formed a defensive phalanx, their AI-controlled drones numbering in the thousands. A wall of light and precision. Reyes countered with analog signal bursts, electromagnetic noise, and World War-era signal jamming protocols. Archaic tech that completely blinded the hyper-advanced systems. In minutes, the wall collapsed. The humans surged forward, taking the final control grid. And then, silence. A siren blared across the Colosseum. Simulation ended. Human forces, victor. On the command spire, silence reigned. Threx stood frozen. Kaz broke the hush. "Well, that happened. They humiliated us," Threx muttered. "No," Kaz corrected. "They taught us." Later, aboard the Coalition Council chamber, Reyes stood before the galactic delegation. No medals, no victory speech, just presence. Admiral Threx, now a humbled shadow of his earlier self, approached her. "Your ships are obsolete by every metric. Your weapons brutal. Your tactics barbaric. But today, I saw something terrifying." Reyes raised an eyebrow. "You are not dominant because of your machines," Threx admitted. "You are dominant because you refuse to accept defeat." She met his gaze. "We evolved by surviving extinction-level events. We build ships to withstand collapse. We fight wars like they'll be our last. That's not savagery. That's humanity." Kez smiled from the corner. "The galaxy won't laugh at your outdated tech anymore." Reyes turned away, looking through the station's window as her fleet returned to Earth space, scarred, worn, but unbeaten. "The day we unveiled our ships," she said, almost to herself, "the stars learned what fear feels like."